Um, so if you want to go back and review something that you saw in the meeting, or you want to suggest to someone that you know to see what they think of CapMac, take them to our YouTube channel, which is where you will find all of our recordings. Okay, looking ahead to future meetings, we have a presentation scheduled by William Gallagher and Mike Wuthel from AppleInsider. I haven't got a title yet or an abstract, but one will appear before the meeting and let you know what we're going to have at the meeting. So just to follow up on what we've done before, we typically want to have you participate in our meetings. So if you have a product you want to do a 5 or 10 minute review of, a tech tip, security tip, something you think our membership would want to learn about Mac OS or iOS, let us know and we'll schedule you to be a speaker at one of the meetings. We've got a couple of quick things tonight, and you can see exactly the kind of thing that, or the time length that you would have to fulfill that. Along those same lines, we'd like to hear from our membership as to what kind of topics you would like to have. You can look back at that YouTube channel and see what our topics have been over the past almost, well, I guess 10 months. What would you like to see in the future? Do you have a speaker, a writer that you would like us to try to reach out and coerce into being a speaker at CapMac? What would you like to see in our meetings? Let us know so we can have the programming that you want to see. We are still trying to do the help desk. Either send it to me by email and I will forward it to the help desk team, or you can do it through Slack. But if you have a question you'd like to get answered, let us know and we'll try our best to help you out. We also have been working with the London Mac User Group on and off. I was on one of their podcasts. I think, Nancy, you were on one?
Oh, I tried. We're not going to talk about it, okay?
Okay. Well, at any rate, we've been working with the London Mac User Group, who has been doing a monthly podcast. And if you are interested in a slightly different perspective on Mac products, there's the URL to their podcast feed. I missed 2 slides when I was preparing these. So let me just pause for a moment here and first turn things over to Tom, who wants to talk for a moment about participation by some CapMac members at the London Mac User Group Christmas quiz. Tom?
Well, as you know, we have some folks for the London group here with us tonight. Well, they invited us to participate in their Christmas pub quiz. So Peter Van Overen, Ginger Hansel, and myself showed up. We were paired with a local Brit who is far more familiar with doing pub quizzes than we were. And we took off. And if you haven't seen London pub quizzes, they are extremely specific, detailed. If you've seen the TV show Jeopardy, these trivia questions are far more difficult. Anyway, at halftime, we had solid grip on last place, and it wasn't even close. We did fairly good in the second half on the next to last quiz. And unfortunately, I had to leave right after the last one. I had an appointment. But I understand that we managed to, based on that one, we managed to claw our way out of dead last place. So we weren't last. but we had a grand time, and I think we made a lot of friends. It was just fun. So if another one of those comes up, I encourage you to join. Ginger or Peter, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Well, if we're going to compete in the future, we're going to have to really work up our knowledge about really arcane stuff because, boy, the Brits have it. Boy, howdy. I mean, well, think about it. They refer to the trunk as the boot, and you know, where you go, you know, roundabouts. Nobody knows about those here. Um, oh, swings and roundabouts. Well, it's half of one and half of the other. There's a bit of arcana, you know. So
Well,
anyway, great though. I mean, it wonderful place to visit though.
one of the quiz things, one section was people wearing Santa Claus outfits, and the object was to determine who it was. Could have been a politician, a celebrity, could have been who knows.
Then we'll switch over to Nancy for a few words before we go to our primary featured speakers.
Okay. As long as for our visitors, we've been around for 26 years. And we have a long history of doing community service whenever it's possible. And we haven't done anything in the last 2 or 3 years, partly because we've not had the opportunity to have the fundraisers that we were fortunate enough to have when we were able to have computer auctions. So that's kind of held us back a little bit because our dues have never changed in the 26 years. We just keep going. So this request has come to us from an organization called CTN, which stands for Community. Let me get it right. Community Tech Networks, and it's an organization designed to provide iPads to low-income elderly seniors, to give them an opportunity, particularly right now, to be able to communicate with the outside world and to teach them the computer skills that they've never had an opportunity to learn. And what they've asked us to do is to help provide some iPads. Now, they have a resource in California that provides some iPads, some reconstructed iPads at a discount. And so they would be happy to have either cash or if you, because they're located here in Austin, if you actually have iPads that you don't use anymore and would like to donate it with the appropriate, plugs and everything to go with it. So what the board decided at the last board meeting was that we would ask members who wanted to contribute to this effort, either in giving a cash donation or donating an iPad. And if you will, I think by the end of this, I think we'll run this through the end of the month because we need to, to let them know how we're going to help them. So does anybody have any questions about this?
Nancy,
Okay.
is there a link where we can send donations to? Because I can ask here too.
Oh, yes. Tom, do you want them? Are you talking about an email? I mean, like an Apple Pay, or are you talking about mailing something?
Whichever they prefer, to be honest. We can happily send it out to our members too.
Well, send it to us because we want to give it to them all at one time. And that also, of course, lets you get the, since we're a nonprofit, you get the tax, well, you probably don't have to worry about tax benefits, but send it to us. You can contact me directly at nancygravely.mac. That's GRAVLEY.mac, or you can send it to our treasurer, Tom, and we will gather this up and we will let you know what we've been able to donate to this very worthy organization. Just one more note, I happen to live in a senior setting, and there are a lot of people who live here, particularly elderly women, who live alone and have never had any opportunity to learn any kind of computer skills. And over the holidays, it was really tough because, we were just here. So I think this is an important service to the community, and I hope everybody will $10, whatever it is that you can donate, it will be helpful to them. So thanks, John.
Hey, you said you wanted to talk about membership?
Oh, yeah, you asked me to do that. Our membership runs for a year. The dues are $36 unless you are a student or like a policeman or can't think of the word, sorry.
First
That's
responder.
Thank you.
Or a veteran.
Or a veteran, $24 a year. I mean, where else can you get such a good deal for $24 a year? But I want to remind everybody that the dues starts in September, and if you join now, you get a prorated rate. I also want to remind you that we have a very nice little gift certificate, all designed, and if you would like to award a friend with membership to CapMac, all you have to do is let Tom know, and we'll make it happen.
All right. Thank you for that, Nancy. Well, does anyone have any general things that you need to share with everyone before we go to our main program? All right. Well, sounds like then I can turn this over to Andrew and Steve. So I will let you guys, I don't know who of you wishes to share your screen and take things over, but Robert can fix you up so that you can. Now, as I recall, one of you, Andrew, you were involved with CES right now, right?
Yeah.
You must be on Zoom all day.
I've been standing like this pose for like 12 hours the past like 2 days. So I'm actually frozen in this position. I cannot move.
Yeah, usually everybody's here in Las Vegas, except this year.
I know, don't remind me. It is very sad. It's been a struggle trying to find everything new and talk to everyone. But, we're making the best of it, making what we can do out of it, which is probably what allowed me to do this because I have a lot less video content to create. So I have time freed up to come hang out with you guys. And I clearly came unprepared. I was going to make a Manhattan. I was like, nah, that's not professional. I'm not going to go sit there with a drink while I'm giving a talk. And I walk in, you guys got wine and martinis and.
Well, we relax, we enjoy these meetings.
We
That's an advantage of Zoom.
We used to meet in a pub.
That's true.
Perfect. Okay, Stephen, how do you want to do this? I'm not sure how. Clearly, Stephen and I have not done this whole thing. I already see something on the screen. So.
Yeah, why don't you do the introduction and we'll follow our format.
Okay, perfect. Steve and I usually, as you saw in the bio, we host the HomeKit Insider podcast for AppleInsider. I've been with AppleInsider for a few years. Steven's been doing this for a while, and he's been doing the AppleInsider podcast and co-hosting the much superior HomeKit Insider podcast with me since we started middle of last year. So we're just really going to talk. This is pretty. We have an outline. Like we've prepared enough to have an outline of what we're going to go through. And topics and everything, but this is going to be a little bit free flowing. So if you guys have questions along the way, try to, shout them out or throw questions, and I will try to keep an eye on it. Stephen can watch as well, whoever's not talking at that specific moment, but we'll go back and forth, walk through some of the basics of HomeKit and smart homes in general, why Apple's approach is the clearly superior approach in the world of smart homes. And I hear you guys have William Gallagher and Mike Worthley. You guys will impress them very much if you can pronounce Mike's last name. Worthley. It looks nothing like what it's spelled.
We'll remember
just remember to tell them how much better our presentation was than theirs. That's all I ask. Just tell them how much better ours. Yeah, it was good, Mike, but Andrew and Steven, they kind of hit it out of the park. So let's go ahead and dive in this. I got to jump between my screens, so I'm just going to assume that Stephen is following along there. We're going to start off with just the kind of basics here of why you should care about smart homes. People sometimes just they stick Bluetooth into something thinking it's a good idea, but there's a lot of good reasons to have a smart home. So Stephen, why don't you go ahead and start us off?
Yeah, so thanks for having us all tonight. By the way, this is a lot of fun. So, when setting up a smart home, I think in the past, a lot of times it's been kind of like that quirky, super nerdy thing that someone might do, and maybe it's not actually useful. But the way it's progressed, especially recently in the last couple of years, that's why Andrew and I started a podcast about it, because we really felt there's a lot of devices out there, things are moving fast, and so it's interesting and can be very useful in the home. And so obviously, why do you want to set up a smart home? What kind of things can you do with it? Obviously can make things convenient in your house, things that were easy, make things easier before. And I'll talk about this later about what to kind of start with. But if there's ever a thing that annoys you, like when you get in bed and you forgot that one light, you forgot to turn it off, something as simple as that, it can make your life so much better and easier. And then multiply that by all the little things that might annoy you throughout the day, as far as your home, lamps, lights, and all that stuff. And it can just make things a lot more convenient. And you can make that convenience also turn into things that happen automatically, like with motion sensors. And I have 3 kids. And so, they'll leave every light on all the time. And so it's very convenient and almost power savings, or it can turn that off when they're not in a room and have things on timers. But it can also be really fun. And I'll talk about these integrations later. But I have my entire living room and home theater set up with HomeKit accessories. So I can walk into the living room, or one of my kids, they can talk to a HomePod and say, it's movie time. And all the lights dim. My entire home theater system turns on. My Apple TV turns on and goes to the Apple TV app. And everything is just set. And I have a receiver, Apple TV, like a bunch of devices, all controlled with one command. And it's convenient because the kids can do it. And then it's like almost kind of a fun starting a movie before you even get to it. And so that's a lot of fun. And also, like unlocking your door or opening a garage door when you drive into your house, the convenience there, again, really a lot of fun and useful. And you can also save money. One of my first smart home devices was a smart thermostat. And living in Florida, like I told you, the temperature ranges so wildly. Sometimes you need the air conditioner in the afternoon and you need the heat at night. So weird. I grew up in New York, so this was it took some getting used to. But using like a smart home thermostat can not only save you money when you're not thinking about it. I have an Ecobee, and it can tell if someone's home or not. And so even if I forget to set it in vacation mode or to turn up the temperature when I leave, it can do it for me. And I can know that my house is saving money. And running the air conditioner in Florida, that'll just run all day, even if you leave it at like 76. So, I can control that and automate it, and it can save me money too. And lastly, when it comes to why you're going to set up a smart home, the security too. When I got a smart lock on my front door, it actually gave me great peace of mind, because I set up automations and scenes where that door is going to lock every night at a certain time. And I've set it late enough so I know all the kids are in bed. No one's going to try and, go get the mail or whatever. And I know that door is locked when I go to bed. Even like, I don't have to think about it. I don't have to get up and check it. I don't have to try and remember. I just know it's locked. And if I really want to know for sure, I can look on my phone and see that device in my home app, and I know it's locked. So for security, convenience, saving money, and again, especially with kids, and or if you have friends and family, maybe um, someone who you're not, the special needs or something like that, having that kind of automation and security would be really helpful. And we'll talk about even more of those details in a few minutes. But when we talk about comparing HomeKit with other systems like Alexa, SmartThings, and Google Home, I think Andrew's going to hit that for us. So Andrew, I'll let you take it away.
Perfect. So Stephen has clearly convinced all of us without a shadow of a doubt that you want a smart home. And there are a lot of smart home platforms that you can choose. The platforms that tie everything together. You could go with the Amazon Alexa and the many devices that support that. You could go with Samsung's SmartThings. There's the Google Home line. But of course, as Apple users, we're already conditioned to trust Apple's approach, which in this case is HomeKit. But we're not looking at this as just, oh, this is Apple's idea, so it's clearly the better solution. There's a bunch of benefits that HomeKit has over all of these other platforms. So one of the big reasons is going to be privacy. Apple has always had, as I'm sure you guys know, just a huge, and this is very apparent today, such a huge, oh, did everything disappear? There we go. Oh,
Sorry,
you
I was
stopped
trying to
sharing your
focus on you,
screen
Andrew.
and my
I
Zoom
totally
meeting
messed you up.
jumped around. Everyone, it's
I
ruined.
was trying to
Cancel
keep
the
it
meeting.
moving.
We're done.
So sorry.
Anyway,
So sorry.
okay. I'm just going to assume everyone's laughing because everyone's mics are muted. So it's like
Right.
just like laughing into a void. Anyway,
A tough crowd.
privacy. Apple has always been huge on privacy, and it makes sense even more when you're looking at the home, because the home has some of your most, personal data. It knows when you're home, what you're doing, what you're saying, so many things about that. It's some of your most closely guarded data. And historically, you never had to worry about that because you didn't have those smart things in your home. So when you're looking at a home platform, privacy is just super important. So Apple, of course, keeps everything very secure and closed off. It has no access to any of your data, and everything that you're controlling through your HomeKit is all done locally. So there's nothing getting sent to third-party servers, nothing like that. It is literally all done from your home. So that's always very important when you're looking at a smart home platform. Next up is security. So it isn't just that Apple is private about things. Everything along the way is designed with security in mind, which has problems, and we'll talk about when we get to limitations. But when Apple starts out with HomeKit, every single product you buy that works with HomeKit has been tested by Apple. Every company is part of the MFI program, which Apple's manufacturer accessory program, and they have to be in good standing in that. So they can't be a shady company and then try to get a certification. They have to be a reputable company to begin with. And then after that, each individual device has to be sent to Apple for certification. Apple started out requiring all HomeKit accessories to have a physical co-processor in there just for encryption. Later in iOS 11, they managed to flip that to make it a little bit easier for products to come to market by making it a software authentication method. But still, right from the beginning, everything had to be secure. And it's what gave HomeKit a little bit of a slow start getting to that certification process. HomeKit products also, they have physical pairing codes on each of those devices. So only you know them, they're on the device itself. So if someone's trying to hack into your stuff, it's just not going to happen because you need those physical codes and your account and everything else paired together to do anything. So again, right from the beginning, right from the moment of setup, everything is a super lockdown and secure. And again, as I mentioned, everything is processed locally. Nothing sent to servers, nothing to get intercepted along the way. So when we look at Alexa and Google specifically, it's honestly scary doing research for this. I see the articles come across the news desk all the time, but it was really scary as I'm prepping for this talk of how many security problems there are out there. Checkpoint Research had this to say: in just one click, a user could have given up their voice history, home address, and control of their Amazon account, which includes all products that are controlled by Amazon. So everything you have controlled by Alexa in your home, with one click, someone could control it. That is impossible to do with HomeKit. There's other ones about how Amazon and Google speakers have turned into eavesdropping and phishing devices, which is just really scary. And I'm not a parent, but I feel like Steven would get chills at this one, where a parent thought their kid was being crazy because she was saying she was hearing stuff coming out of her room. Turns out a hacker had hacked into their Nest Cam and was spying on like their 7-year-old daughter and was like talking to her and playing creepy things through the speaker. It just still gives me the chills. And things like this are never the case with HomeKit. That is why Apple has been slow and kind of resilient in the way they've been moving HomeKit forward, because there's not one story like this of a HomeKit product. So when you're picking up a HomeKit product, you can really feel that it is secure and private. Other benefits include the longevity of those products. Too many times we've heard of products like even big companies like Best Buy put out their own switches. They didn't do so well. So after a couple years, they flipped the switch and they stopped working. Those worked with Alexa, Google Home, and HomeKit. They still work with HomeKit, but they don't work with any of the other platforms because Best Buy disabled them essentially. So there's no way for those products to keep working with other platforms, but because Apple designed HomeKit products to work through the Home app, you don't need any other app to use them. So should the company go under or discontinue support for those products, you can rest assured those products will continue to function for you. And then finally, just the big benefit of being part of the Apple ecosystem. Only Apple can integrate its products this tightly into what they're doing, whether it's into the control center on your iPhone, whether it's the apps on your Mac, just overall how Apple has integrated this so tightly into the operating systems. And as the maker of both the software and the hardware, Apple can do that. So we can get into some of the technical stuff, which is how HomeKit is connecting everything. HomeKit is connecting primarily over Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, but that is starting to change. A lot of other platforms support things like Zigbee and Z-Wave. Now, while Philips Hue, one of the big ones, they do use Zigbee, most everything else for HomeKit has been Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. Apple does allow you to use bridges for certain products like the Hue line, but otherwise it's been those two standards. If you want to do something like automate your home, so you can add accessories right out of the gate without any sort of hub in your home. But to do all the fancy stuff, you do need to have a home hub, and a home hub is going to be a HomePod mini, a regular sized HomePod, an iPad that is continuously connected to power. I usually don't recommend that one, or an Apple TV. So if you have an Apple TV or any of the HomePods, that's going to act as your home hub, which gives you outside access, because again, you need that local hub to give you that secure outside access to your devices. It gives you the automation powers, can power things like adaptive lighting, which will change your light's warmth throughout the day to kind of mimic your circadian rhythm of your body. And it's also used for some of the security features on cameras, because a lot of that processing, again, is done locally. They need that additional processing power found in an Apple TV or HomePod to make that happen. One of the new emerging methods of connecting everything is through something called Thread. Thread is a mesh network and has a lot of benefits over Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is nice because it can connect, give you that internet connection without having to be close to a home hub or anything, but it only works on 2.4 gigahertz, which is very, like, I mean, how many consumers out there are going to know what gigahertz band their Wi-Fi router is on? It just doesn't make sense. I know, Stephen, you've had issues with this recently, trying to connect your stuff with 2.4 versus 5 and just not connecting. So that's a problem with the Wi-Fi area. Bluetooth, you usually need to have your hub or a repeater near it, and there's always issues with that. So Thread, this new technology, it can create a self-healing mesh network. So it'll blanket your home in that Thread network. If one device goes offline, it literally can reroute itself through other Thread-enabled devices, making sure you always have connectivity through all of your smart home gadgets. It also has much lower, what's my word?
Latency?
Latency, that's a man. Latency, much lower latency than Bluetooth or Zigbee. Bluetooth is usually 80 to 800 milliseconds typically for a response time. Zigbee is 50 to 230, gets a little bit better, but Thread is incredible at 40 to 120 milliseconds, especially on the high end, very, very low, about half of what the maximum for Zigbee is. So it's really, really fast and responsive. There have only been a couple Thread-enabled devices coming out, but so far they've been extremely promising to be very quick. Thread devices are also super battery efficient, so they can run on a battery and still last for probably a couple years, and they're extendable because they create that mesh network so they can go through your yard, through your house, wherever they need to reach. Now, again, I know you've all committed to HomeKit. You've already started adding items to your shopping cart while you're listening to us talk. Stephen, how can we get started with our own HomeKit home?
Yeah, so we'll talk about get started. And one of the things you mentioned about connectivity, Craig actually put this question in the chat, but how do you suggest using a mesh network and a HomeKit device running on that 2.4 megahertz network or gigahertz network? But we'll answer the other questions too at the end. But I just want to say that is one of the most frustrating aspects of setting up a home when you have that mesh network. I have a Linksys Velop, a Wi-Fi 6 mesh network, which the Wi-Fi is incredible. But I do have some devices, like I still have a Meris. I just learned how to pronounce that brand name. It's MEROSS, a Meris plug. And I still have not been able to connect it to my HomeKit app. And basically what you have to do is like walk far enough away from your Wi-Fi routers so your device, like your iPhone, flips into 2.4 gigahertz spectrum. Because the farther you get away from a Wi-Fi hub, the more likely it's going to use that lower spectrum for range. But it is a frustrating. It can be a frustrating experience depending on what devices you use. So, but we can answer more of that later. So, how to get started with HomeKit and good accessories. I'm gonna try and share my screen one more time and see if it breaks everything. Maybe not. Okay, I think we're good. So, getting started with HomeKit, I'll assume if you don't have an Apple TV or a HomePod, like Andrew said, and you don't want to deal with a hub from like Philips Hue or something like that, one of the best devices you can start out with is a light bulb, or like from LifeX. If you've not heard of that brand, it's LIFX, LifeX, and it's HomeKit compatible, and you do not need a hub, and it is just a light bulb. And so I would find, one of those lights that I talked about earlier on, that inconvenient, that you maybe consistently forget to turn off before going to bed, and put that first light bulb in that lamp or light, and just try, before you do any automations or scheduling, just have the light bulb there. So when you get to your bedroom, you're like, I forgot to turn that light off. I'm gonna just use my phone to do it, watch it go off. And that's a pretty satisfying feeling once you discover that one thing. And so if you don't want to deal with a hub, don't have a home hub, try one of those maybe LifeX bulbs. That'd be helpful. I do recommend, though, if you do want to get into the smart home HomeKit stuff, having that home hub for the automations and the shortcuts is really helpful. So I do recommend it. Now that we have the HomePod Mini at $99, it's a great entry point for that. Or if again, if you have an Apple TV or the bigger HomePod, those work too. But as you think about what devices to do first, again, a thermostat was one of my first ones. I really enjoyed having that. And doing that light switch or light bulb, I find if you switch out a light bulb, like let's say you have a lamp in your living room, you put a smart bulb in there, but not everyone in your house or people that come in know it's a smart bulb. If they flip the light switch off or they reach up in the lamp and switch it off, then you're going to lose control of it because it's the bulb that's smart, not the plug or the light switch. And so that can sometimes be a frustrating experience where the light switch is off or someone turned the lamp off and now that bulb shows is not connected. So one of the things that I do like to do is replace an entire light switch or use a smart plug in the wall. And those, again, are easily accessible, the smart plugs at least, because you can put that in the electrical outlet, put a fan or a lamp in the smart plug, and then you can have control of that. And then even if someone switched the lamp on or off, you might have to, check. You might try to turn it on your phone, but it stays off. At least you won't lose connection to the device. Switching out that light switch for something like a chandelier in your dining room or a kitchen light or a bathroom light, that's like a surefire way. And that's what I prefer to do, is switch out an entire light switch. That does get a little more advanced. You got to turn the breaker off. Don't electrocute yourself. You're dealing with some wiring. But when you switch out that light switch, then you have full control over that. It's always going to have power. No one can switch it off by accident, as in like disconnect it. So I really like the light switch idea. So find something, a common task, something repetitive, or a lamp or something that is you forget to turn off often, and replace that. A lamp, a fan, a light bulb. If you have ceiling fans, I see a couple ceiling fans in the Zoom call. I have a ceiling fan, and that can be difficult to get control of. They do make some HomeKit switches for ceiling fans. I think Lutron makes one. But you need like a neutral wire in your home. I don't have neutral wires in my home. It's an older home. So I have to find specific switches that are HomeKit, don't require neutral. But if you do want to try to control a ceiling fan, Philips Hue, which is, Andrew mentioned it before, it does require a separate hub, but they actually make candelabra style smaller light bulbs you can use in ceiling fans. And in HomeKit, you can group those lights together. So you just have one device in your home app, and you can turn off that entire ceiling fan light structure with one tap. And you can even dim it. So that's available too. That's Philips Hue. And I'm actually going to put some of the brands I'm talking about over here. So there we go. And And I would also suggest if you're trying to find out what should you do first in the smart home, when you get up in the morning, a lot of times it's nicer to have some dimmed lights or dimmable lights. And so if you have dimmable bulbs, or if you want to transition to like dimmable LEDs, that's what I have a lot in my fixture. Whatever room you go into first in the morning, having that ability to dim the lights is kind of convenient and nice in the morning. So like my master bath, I switch those lights to all dimmable LEDs, and I put a dimmer switch in the bathroom. And I even paired it with a motion detector. It was getting a little more advanced, but I programmed it so when I walk in the bathroom in the morning, the light turns on at the dimmest setting. And this way, it's not like, super bright light, because I want it bright sometimes. I want my bathroom to be very bright when my wife is getting ready, she wants it super bright. So being able to dim that and actually automate that, it's really nice and convenient. So it can be dim in the morning. I can change the dimness, and you can even use Siri to make it brighter later. So just some ideas to get started. And again, when you start thinking about what you want to implement next, think about rooms or areas in your house. For me, I have a second floor that's kind of like a little attic space. The kids use it as a playroom. And because I didn't care to go up there all the time to make sure all the lights were off, that was one area where I was like, I'm going to put all smart light switches up here. And then I can just say to my phone, turn off the upstairs, and I know all the lights up there are going to go off. I don't have to think about individual lights or anything like that. And so think about your home in those rooms or areas as you begin to buy devices and plan for that. And again, one of my first choices up there was a smart plug from Wemo. And I forgot, of all the brands I forgot to put on this slide was Wemo, but Wemo from Belkin makes so many great devices, and they were some of my first ones. And I put a Wemo plug on an air conditioner unit that is up there on the second floor. It's a window unit because, again, Florida gets very hot up there. And it was nice because I can program that window unit to turn on in the morning, and the upstairs could be cool for my kids to go play up there, middle of the to turn off time they were going to bed. And so I knew it was on when it needed to. It was on long enough to cool down the room, so it was ready for my kids and come down. And that was just one smart plug, and that made that one experience a lot better. So there's just some ideas. We're getting started with HomeKit and areas and devices and things like that. So I'm gonna throw it back to Andrew to talk about some of the limitations that we have in the HomeKit space.
Thank you, Stephen. Another thing I wanted to mention about getting started is, and this is one thing I always kind of talk about on the podcast, and I know all of you listen to the podcast every week, so I probably don't even need to say it, but physical controls, I think, are very important. When you're setting up your smart home, a lot of times people get into that thought of like, oh, I'm just gonna automate this or do something with my phone. And it may be cool, but it can make it very confusing for guests, for children, for older people who don't want to do it. There are plenty of reasons someone may not want to have to use whatever techie way you set up some lights. My wife, she loves the smart home stuff, but if she can't turn off those lights with a switch, I'm gonna get kicked in the shin. So I always thought it was very important. Stop laughing at me, Stephen. I always thought it was very important to have that physical way to control things. And like Stephen said, of installing light switches, which I see, John, you have a question there of what light switches we recommend. Lutron is extremely reliable for their switches, a little bit higher price point, I think, and they do require a hub, but Lutron is very, very good. Another option, Wemo makes wall switches, Eve makes wall switches. All three of them are very great options, but I just love that you can use the physical switch same as you always could, but you have all the benefits of a smart home. Tie it to a timer, tie it to a motion sensor, do whatever you want, but you still have that physical way to control them. A door lock, we had someone even ask if you can trust your home to a door lock. I think so, yes, especially when you're going through HomeKit and not relying on any third-party platforms. Amazon and Google, I think it's Amazon, they actually require anytime you control any of your devices to send that up to the cloud first to report that status was changed. They actually know if you are in your home at any given time, and if you unlock something, if you turn on a light, something like that, I don't like it. HomeKit, all that's local. That command is going through Siri, nothing else. So I do trust smart locks, and one of my favorite smart locks is actually from Level, which we saw on Steven's slide. It's basically like an invisible lock. It actually swaps out the dead bolt in the lock itself, so you never see it. And again, it gives you that physical control because it looks like a lock, it acts like a lock, doesn't confuse anyone, and it blends really into your home seamlessly. You don't have to change out any of that physical external hardware, but again, you have all that smart control baked in. So there's a lot of cool devices that you can put in there, but I always think about the physical control at the same time. So going back to talk about some limitations with HomeKit. Steven makes it sound all, pie in the sky, but there are limitations. First of them is the rate at which HomeKit products have been released. As of October 2019, Apple only had 450 HomeKit compatible devices, which it kind of sounds like a lot. And when we're just looking at that, but everything is relative, because if we look at Google, Google has 10,000 objects that are designed to work with Google Assistant, and Amazon has 85,000, and that's in 2019. So everyone's grown since then, but still, it's a huge disparity between what Apple's doing and what Google and Amazon are doing. And part of the reason is Apple's security and certification process. It is way simple to get Amazon working with your device. It's super easy to do, and you basically just submit a kind of, yes, I agree to these things, and you're in the program. Versus Apple, you have to actually physically send that device there, get it tested by Apple engineers before they'll give you anything, be part of that MFI program, and it just takes a long time. I remember talking to one device manufacturer, and they created like a hub and then a bunch of different devices that connected to it. So wall switches, plugs, smoke detectors, just all of these things. They couldn't just send to that hub. They had to send every device that worked with it. And it ended up being like a couple hundred devices that they included in that list. And they had to package all of that up, like hundreds of devices, and ship it out to California. And they were in either the UK or maybe it was Germany, somewhere overseas. And it was a huge cost to them to get that certification done. And it took a long time to accomplish. So there are limitations from a manufacturer standpoint in getting those HomeKit devices to market. And us as the consumers paid that price by having a little bit more of a limited number of products to choose between versus what we see with those other platforms. But again, at least we have that peace of mind knowing that what we buy is going to be worth it. On top of that, cost. Because they are part of the MFI program, they do have to do the certification process. It can inflate the price of HomeKit products versus ones that work with other platforms. Eve, I was on Steven's slide, is one of the best HomeKit makers out there. And in fact, they work exclusively with HomeKit. They only work with HomeKit. They are extremely secure because of that, because they run no servers. The app doesn't do anything other than control your devices locally in your home. So it's super private, super secure, but their products have a little bit higher cost because they're cutting out that Amazon market, and they're part of those programs on that certification process, which can just elevate those prices a little bit more. I see all these smart plugs, like $10 for this plug that I can control through Amazon's Assistant. And to me, that price trade-off isn't worth it, because there's the security, the reliability, everything else that kind of goes along with that lower price that you just may not be aware of. Other limitations to HomeKit. There's other things like you have to use Siri. Some people don't like Siri as much, and your only options are HomePod, so you don't have as many speaker options to choose from if you're looking for something like that. The Home app itself can be very easy up front, but it can be limiting in what you want to do. So if you're just starting off with HomeKit, the Home app is great because it is simple, straightforward, and gets you like those basic controls. But as you start to become more of an advanced smart home user, you may want to do more. And Apple's basic app out of the box is just a little too light for what we're looking for. HomeKit has problems like the number of cameras you can add. You can only add 5 HomeKit secure video cameras to your account. And for some people, 5, that's not enough. So there's things like that, which has to do with how they're processing all of that video locally to do object detection, artificial intelligence, facial recognition, all processed locally. So above that 5 cameras, Apple seems to be running into resource limitations. And again, users paying that price for that security and privacy that they get from being part of HomeKit. We also have limited accessory types. We're seeing ones with SmartThings and Alexa that are doing things like stoves, washer and dryer, energy monitors, all of those things. And Apple doesn't have any of those as categories yet within HomeKit. So if you're looking for some of those smart appliances, you're not going to find them in HomeKit right now. So those are other big limitations to Apple's smart home platform. Now, Stephen, why don't you walk us through how Apple has expertly integrated HomeKit with all of our favorite Apple gear?
Absolutely. And, I'm all in on the Apple system. I have Apple Watch, iPad, iPhone, all that. I thought one of the interesting questions, G. Hansel said it in, like, what if you have everything set up and you misplace your iPhone? Well, if you have a HomePod, what's amazing is you can actually tell or ask your HomePod, where's my iPhone? And it can play a sound on your iPhone. Or if you have an Apple Watch, you can ping your iPhone that way too. So again, the integration is really great. Again, if you lose your phone or misplace it too, and you have a HomePod, you can control all your HomeKit devices from the HomePod or from your Apple Watch or from your iPad or even your Mac. The Home app is on the Mac now as well. Again, my favorite integration is probably the Apple Watch because it's on my wrist all day, and so I don't usually misplace it. I don't think I've ever misplaced it. And there's actually great apps, even third-party apps for the Apple Watch, where you can add scenes to your watch face as a complication. I use Siri a lot, especially to unlock my front door. Again, going back to the question of can I trust my house to a smart lock? Craig asked that. I was actually skeptical about that at first because it's like the lock for your home. And I have to say, it has been rock solid since I've been using a smart home lock. It's never given me like a false positive telling me it's locked when it's not, and it's always responded. And I do the groceries in my house. So when I'm carrying a ton of groceries, I try to do the Hulk thing where I have 1,000 bags on each arm. I can just tell my watch to unlock the front door and I know it's unlocked when I get in there. And so super convenient, again, using the watch and other Apple devices for that. On the HomePod side, one of the things the HomePod is great at is hearing you. You don't have to yell. The microphones are very sensitive and really pick it up. And so, just asking Siri to do something home-wise or run an automation or run a shortcut, any shortcut that you make on your iPhone, you can run on your HomePod, at least most of them, as long as they don't require your phone to do whatever it is. So any kind of home automation shortcut, you can just talk to your HomePod and ask it. You don't have to sync it. You don't have to send it over. It's just there. And so that's a really nice integration. And because, again, I have 3 kids, my kids understand some of the scenes to run. And like one of them is go to bed. And so I have a go to bed scene, and then I have a good night scene. And so the go to bed, it shuts off all the lights in the house except for our master bedroom. And so when I say that, kids understand like time for bed. The whole house is shut off except for our bedroom. And then when I have my good night scene, me or my wife will say that to our HomePod in our bedroom. And then it finally shuts off the lights in our bedroom, turns off the Apple TV in the bedroom, and that's it. The whole house is off. So that integration, and especially where other people can use it, even if they don't, know all about it, you can tell someone, listen, just say, hey, I won't say the word because it might activate somebody's device, but hey, you, good night. I'm talking about Siri, but and someone can pick that up very quickly. Again, if you have a Mac, you can use the Home app on your Mac and all the same devices you see on your phone. Your watch or your iPad will be on your Mac as well. And there's actually great third-party apps and some hacky things you can do on your Mac too. If you've never heard of Home Bridge, this is a little more advanced, but you can actually use an app. It's a free service that actually makes your Mac into a server, and it's called HomeBridge. And you can use other devices that don't have HomeKit capability and add them into your Home app and automations. You don't get the same security benefits as when it's a HomeKit only device, but that's available to you. Even Logitech Harmony, which makes some universal remotes like for your TV and home theater system. There's a third-party app for Mac where you can install that and add your Logitech Harmony universal remote to your Home app. I know there's a lot of words, it's complicated, but that's what allows me to control my whole home theater system. That's a third-party app. And again, that's the kind of integration and extensions that you can use with your home stuff. And also, if you have an Apple TV, one of the coolest things is you can see your HomeKit cameras on your Apple TV. You can go to the control center on Apple TV. You do that by holding the TV icon if you have a newer Apple TV with the Siri remote, and you can see your HomeKit cameras right there on your Apple TV. And if you have a HomeKit secure video doorbell on an Apple TV, if someone rings that doorbell, you can actually see the doorbell camera pop up on your Apple TV, on your TV, and see who's at the door. So that's the kind of integration you get when you use Apple devices all along the line. And of course, with your iPhone can run everything. There's great third-party apps for iPhone that allows you to manage your HomeKit devices and automations, really powerful stuff. And yeah, it just works all together seamlessly. So again, if you're all in on the Apple ecosystem, HomeKit is pretty incredible. So I'm going to throw it to Andrew for our last segment, and then we can answer some of these questions. You guys have been sending in awesome ones. The future of HomeKit. So talk to me, Andrew, about that.
Cool. So another one of the topics that we had on here that actually, I want to go back real quick to the lock question for the 8th time, because we did have a follow-up. Okay. We're going to come back to all these questions for sure at the end, but one of the things that I think the lock is such a good example of HomeKit in general, because of the security implications that that come with it. You want to make sure that your house is secure. It's nerve-wracking kind of trusted with that. And what I can say, at least with August, which is owned by Yale, which is owned by Assa Abloy, one of the biggest lock manufacturers in the world, and the other one being Level, everything is, from the beginning, is super secure. They're using the most reliable hardware, the same hardware that you would already trust with your door. This is that. So the physical hardware is going to be as secure as what you have now. The digital part, the smart part of it, that's also backed up. They're using bank level encryption on this, and going through HomeKit is levels upon levels of security. There's never been any security issues like getting into HomeKit. And all these locks too are using Bluetooth. So the question of what happens with a power outage, trying to open a smart door, a smart lock, something like that, it's all local. You can use a key just like you normally would, or you can go ahead and use your phone. You can use Bluetooth, you can use Siri, all processed locally there from your phone, and still unlock that even if your house is without power. So you have multiple levels of redundancy there. You know, if your automations aren't working because the power's out and your home hub isn't working, you can do it locally from your phone, and barring that, you can still hide a key outside just like you would with a regular lock. But because it is a smart lock, you have the added benefit of notifications and knowledge. So if something happens, if someone picks your lock like they would with a standard deadbolt, you're going to know because you just got a notification that that lock was unlocked and you didn't do it. So that gives you, that just extra level of protection in your home. So I don't have any problems relying on that for peace of mind, for knowing when someone is controlling the door, whether I want them to or not. And I still have that access and control, regardless if I have power in the home. So talking about the future of HomeKit, there's a lot we're going to see. 2020 was really exciting in the world of HomeKit. We saw HomeKit secure video enabled doorbells. These are smart video doorbells that are able to store their video inside of iCloud, which is, in my opinion, the most secure place that you could store your videos that you're recording from your door or inside your house. Apple jumped into facial recognition. Again, they're actually using the photo library on your phone. This is crazy how Apple is able to integrate these things together. The photos that you use, that you take of your kids, your family, anyone else, they're able to use those to match with people who walk into your home to tell you who is there. It's really cool. And the fact they're able to do that so privately with the machine learning done on device, to me, it is incredible how they've been able to pull that off. So we got facial recognition, we got zones for HomeKit cameras to get rid of error notifications. We saw the launch of HomePod Mini. And no, HomePod Mini and the HomePod will not fight one another. They will not get into a battle for dominancy. They will both work in your home without issue. We saw intercom launching. You can go between HomePods, your Apple Watch, your iPhones, Macs, everything, and talk to one another throughout your house. We saw adaptive lighting come to HomeKit lights, so they change at the time of day to match your circadian rhythm, removing some of that blue light out of your smart lights as you get into the evening hours to help you go to bed and feel more rested through your sleep. we saw the first devices come out in a few new product categories, including air purifiers, which this year feels even more important than ever, especially for people who are on that west coast of the United States that's going to be burning to the ground half the time. You have smoke to worry about, and something like an air purifier or multiple air purifiers in your home can be really important. And it gives you a lot of information and visibility into that of what you're cleaning from your air, and gives you a little bit more peace of mind that you're going to stay healthy and you're not breathing in things that you shouldn't be. So 2020 was pretty amazing as far as HomeKit was concerned, and a lot of that was done through software. So looking into 2021, looking into the future, we are undoubtedly going to see new additional product categories that Apple has not put out yet. Possibly what we talked about before, energy monitors, appliances, those can come to Siri or HomeKit. We will see possibly additional paid services. Apple has been doubling down on services for things, and they've been doing it for music. They've been doing it for the games in the App Store. They've been doing it for fitness, and they just a little bit started to do with the smart home by relying on iCloud storage for your HomeKit secure video cameras. So if you have those secure video cameras in your home, they're saving that data into iCloud, and that is actually using that iCloud storage. So your iCloud storage plan, whether you're on 200 gigs or 2 terabytes, you're paying a little bit of money already. So Apple could be leaning more into those additional services for your home. I wouldn't expect it to go crazy, but it's something Apple could look into as they try to look for additional revenue streams through services. Apple stores are likely to continue to make HomeKit and smart homes more mainstream. Apple started to really put in a lot of physical displays into their stores where you could walk in, have an iPad, have an HomePod mini, and try it out for yourself. You could hit the buttons and see the shades go up and down, and the lights turn off, the garage door open, all through the Home app or through your voice. So we're still likely to see Apple pushing that in their retail presence to make smart homes more approachable and understandable to people who have previously not ventured into that territory. And we're likely going to see that new Thread connectivity, a lot of Thread devices come out, which is going to fix one of the bigger issues. People who think that the devices are maybe too slow to respond or not as responsive as just flipping a switch, things like Thread are going to make a big impact there, because they're going to fix any connectivity and responsiveness issues that there's been in the smart home. So those are going to be some big changes. Apple's also participating in something called CHIP, which is the Project Connected Home over IP. So this is under the auspices of the Zigbee Alliance, and it's a ton of smart home manufacturers, including Apple, Google, and Amazon, and many, many others. There's like 150 members maybe of smart home device manufacturers, all working together on a connected home standard. And the first iteration of this is going to be based on Wi-Fi, including up to Wi-Fi 6. And it's also going to support Thread on this first iteration, and I believe IP versions of Bluetooth. So there's going to be a first iteration of this connected home over IP, with the big benefit, making it very easy for companies to deploy products that work across the board on Amazon, Google, and HomeKit. So that's going to be a big benefit for HomeKit users, because with this one standard, devices are going to work across the board. So we're going to see a ton more HomeKit devices coming to market thanks to this new emerging standard. So HomeKit really has a lot of stuff going for it. We've seen a ton of changes over the last few years as Apple has iterated on things, streamlined their processes, added new device categories, updated the HomeKit. HomeKit finally brought it to the Mac. And really, I feel like Apple is just getting started. So there's still a lot to see from HomeKit. Hopefully in another year or two, we have you guys invite us back and we'll get to tell you about all the cool things HomeKit has done in that time. But I think it's time we get to some more of these questions that we have yet to answer. So if you guys have any other questions, throw them up in there, and Steve and I will go and answer some of the ones that have shown up here. Steven, what do we got? You've been looking through the list.
Yeah, there are a couple people asked about mesh Wi-Fi systems, and you do want some good Wi-Fi especially if you're trying to do HomeKit smart home stuff. I used the Linksys Velop system. It was one of the first Wi-Fi 6 routers that had really good reviews, and so I went with that. But the other reason is Eero. Eero is a really popular Wi-Fi router, and they do work well. But if you didn't know, Amazon owns Eero now. So that's an Amazon product. And again, we talked about some of the security implications with Amazon smart home stuff, and I just particularly didn't want an Amazon-owned like Wi-Fi router in the house. And so that's why I went with Linksys Velop. And also Linksys Develop is adding HomeKit to their Wi-Fi routers, which is even going to increase that security along the home device line. So when it comes to mesh networks, I personally really like the Linksys Develop. The Wi-Fi speeds have been amazing with Wi-Fi 6, and they're going to add HomeKit. Some of their lines already have it. So hopefully that answers the mesh question.
How do you spell Velop?
VELOP. VELOP.
Linksys is part of Belkin, which it has the additional added benefit of Belkin being such a tight Apple partner. So I think that gives them a little bit of a leg up in what they do. Even though they've been slow to roll out HomeKit, I think that gives them an added benefit over an Amazon controlled company.
Yeah, and Andrew already mentioned this before, but the HomePod Mini and HomePod, I'm using a virtual background so you can't see it, but I have a HomePod right here behind me, and I have a HomePod Mini right in the next room, probably like 15 feet away. And actually, it's a HomePod Mini stereo pair. So I have two HomePod Minis paired back there and a big HomePod here, and it works great all together. You know, if I'm playing something on my phone, I can choose speakers to AirPlay to, and if I say the magic words of something Siri, you know, it'll listen to me. And if I'm in that room, the HomePod Minis light up and they'll listen to me. If I'm in here in the bedroom, it'll listen to me in here. So they work great all together.
Regardless if you have Spectrum or anyone else, there could be an issue with a double router situation. So if you have an existing router and then you put a router on top of that, you can have things like double NAT. They're assigning the same IP address to devices. But typically, if you plug one router into that one and everything uses your one router, you're fine. If you want to get techie, you can go in and put your Spectrum router or your AT&T router or anything like that into bridge mode and allow your Linksys router to solely do all of the control there. But I'd say if you don't use that other router at all and you connect everything into your Linksys router, you'll be just fine, even having two routers stacked on top of one another.
And I would also say I have Spectrum internet here, cable internet, and I kick Spectrum's Wi-Fi router out the window. Not really. I gave it back to them. You save $10 a month on the bill by not using their router, so you do save a little money. But what I did was I bought the ARRIS or ARRIS, ARRIS. I bought that cable modem. I bought the highest. I think it's like 32 downstreams and 16 upstreams cable modem, which all it does is you put the coax cable in and it gives you one Ethernet out. And so I just have the cable modem. It's my device, not Spectrum's. And then from there, I go into my Linksys Velop Wi-Fi router. So I don't even use any of Spectrum's equipment. I use my own. And then I also don't have to worry about any kind of dual Wi-Fi router or network going on in my house. So that's what I do.
Nancy here asked, if we live in an apartment with those limitations, would you recommend as a first step to implement HomeKit? This is fun because I did this. I was in an apartment for a long time, moved into a townhome. Even then, I got ballsy and I was still switching out hardware on the walls because the handyman said, as long as you put it back before you leave, it's fine. But I know some people don't want to do that. So a few things that I would do. Probably the first thing that I jump to would be the smart lock. And I really, really like it for a number of reasons, especially if you have family nearby. One, security, peace of mind. I do have that good night scene right now in my house. It turns off the blinds, adjusts my thermostat, turn off my blinds, turns off my lights, shuts the blinds, adjusts the thermostat, and locks my door. So I know that my door is locked. You can ask Siri, is my front door locked? And she will tell you yes or no from your home or anywhere else. So I really like the lock for peace of mind, knowing that my door is locked. My wife will ask me every time, and I'm like, look, you can ask Siri, and she'll tell you. So that's one thing. It also is really beneficial because you can give virtual keys to people. So family members, friends, neighbors, anything like that. So in an emergency, they can still have access to your home. Anytime they do use that lock, you're getting notified. You're going to see that Kim unlocked your front door. You're going to see that Susie unlocked your front door or locked your door, whatever it is. So not only are you able to give access, whether temporary, reoccurring on some sort of regular basis for a cleaning person or someone who's watering plants, something like that, or just permanent. And so you have a lot of control over how you grant access to those keys. But then you have a timeline. You can see when those people came, left, whether they locked, didn't lock. You can even have the door automatically lock for you. So if you unlock it, it'll automatically lock itself after 5 minutes, and you never have to worry about it again. So for a lot of those reasons, a lock would be one of my first things. The second thing would be light bulbs, because you can replace those in an apartment without any issue. Hue has the biggest lineup of those, so they're usually one of my first ones to recommend. Even with their bridge, it's very easy to hide it. It just plugs into your router. A small little puck guy, literally about the size of a hockey puck, but white. Then you have a ton of options with their light bulbs that you can put in there, and they are quick to support a lot of Apple's features, such as the adaptive lighting and other stuff that Apple's done. So Hue light bulbs are a great one to put in, and I think you have a lot of control there. Hue also has physical switches to go with, so you can put little dimmer switches on the wall. One that we didn't mention is Lutron makes it, but it's called, I don't remember what it's called, Steven, but it's a little knob that like clips over top of your Aurora. Yes, it goes right over top of your existing light switch that you have, like your little rocker switch. And it allows you to dim your Hue lights and turn them on and off without having to worry about someone turning that manual flip off and turning off the lights. So I love kind of tying those together. So there's a lot of benefits of going with a light bulb as an early choice too. If you want to get fancier, you can put light strips a lot of places. I have light strips in my kitchen on a motion sensor. I walk in and under my cabinets light up. So I can actually see my countertops a lot more easily, which is great for cooking in the kitchen. And I have them on to different brightnesses based on the time of day. So if I go into my kitchen at night, 2 o'clock in the morning, because I really want a cookie, and I can do that, and the lights will come on really low, and they're not going to blind me. So things like that you can set up and automate very easily. Functional, beneficial, a lot of benefits to doing light bulbs as an early step there. What else do we got here?
That Linksys Velop router that y'all were talking about, does it handle Zigbee?
No, it does not. It's for Zigbee, you'll still need some sort of other bridge. Hue has its own coming in their own bundle if you're using Hue lights, but it would depend on what you're trying to control with Zigbee. There right now is not a universal Zigbee bridge for HomeKit.
Oh, I've got a digital lock on the door that has Zigbee connection. So that's why I was trying to add that to my Wi-Fi.
Yeah. There are ones you can use that give you that Zigbee capabilities. The Abode IOTA is a nice one. It's got a HomeKit control for security system and a camera, and it also acts as a Zigbee base station, but it won't add those Zigbee devices to HomeKit. So it would give you that Zigbee control, but not HomeKit control for that.
Oh, okay. That's kind of what I was looking for. Okay.
Yes.
We can look that up for that Spectrum one if Steven's already on that.
Yeah, the Aura Surfboard 32x8 DOCSIS, that is the one I have, and love it. Especially, and let me just double check. Yeah, that is the one. You can. Oh no, wait. That's something a little different. Let me find the exact one I have. But one of the things too is as you add devices, especially smart home devices and things that are pulling on your Wi-Fi, depending on how many downstream things you have in your cable modem and your router, it is important to have a robust network because you will notice either things slowing down or devices being kicked on or off. And so that's why I really made sure of that. I'll put the link in the chat for the thing that I'm talking about. This is the Best Buy link, but you can get it on Amazon. It's the Aura Surfboard. It's got DOCSIS 3.1. It is the 32x8, but it doesn't have any wireless features built in. It is strictly the cable modem by itself. So anyway, that's that link.
Oh, which one was that? Which was that? Oh, I was looking for that too.
Yeah, my Wi-Fi just comes in and out all the time at our house, and we have Spectrum, and I'd like to figure out a better way to deal with our Wi-Fi.
Yeah, the best way to deal with it with Spectrum is to not trust them with it. That's been my experience. So
Yeah, do you get one of these modems, and
Exactly.
then does it just hook up by itself, or you have to have somebody hook it up for you, or because I know I had to call Spectrum and they have to connect stuff,
Yeah.
or what?
you do have to call them. So the process is you get this cable modem, you hook it up, you have to call Spectrum and give them the MAC address. It's written on the label on the cable modem, and you give them that MAC address, and you're saying, want to use my own cable modem. It's this one, and then they'll be able to hook it up for you. So you do have to call them for that part. And then for Wi-Fi, again, if you're using Spectrum's Wi-Fi router, that's a mixed bag. It's hard to know what kind of Wi-Fi they have. So
I
that's
have, like it's got the phone and all that with it. So I don't know how that would work.
Yeah, that gets more complicated. But there are very few phone routers that you can buy.
Yeah, so it might have.
I've looked.
Yeah, and so one thing you could do is on the bottom of the router that you get from Spectrum, on that little label, it should give you an IP address and like a login and password where you can manage the Wi-Fi settings of their router. And so a lot of times what I'll tell people is, okay, if you can't get rid of it because you have the phone or whatever other reason, get on your Mac, connect to the router, log into with the IP address, and turn off the Wi-Fi networks that router is spitting out. So you can just turn off the Wi-Fi networks on that router, but still leave it on and active so that phone that's physically connected to it stays active.
Then you put on your own Wi-Fi.
Exactly.
Devices.
Exactly.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
What was the modem again that y'all were recommending?
It's the RS Surfboard 32 by 8 DOCSIS
Surfboard.
Yep.
32 by 8.
I'll tell you what, let me let's see if I can do this without blowing anything up. But
Mark, it's in the chat.
Yep, it's in the chat, and this is it as well.
Let's see. Oh. Got it. RS. Okay. Thank you.
And you don't have to pay if you put that in. You don't have to pay rental anymore.
Right. Exactly.
One of the other benefits too of going with, because there's those two devices, you got your modem and then your router for your Wi-Fi. And if you go with something like the Velop or a mesh network in general for your Wi-Fi, a really handy benefit is the fact that it's expandable. So you can start off with just one Linksys router that works with a mesh network, and then add on additional devices as you need to. So you can get, and they're not like the extenders that you may have tried in the past. Typical extender, you can see a huge drop in your speed, and mesh routers is a good one. Will keep 100% of the speed they're getting from the first router as they connect. So there's a bunch of different Linksys Velop bundles out there that are from one router to 3 routers to 5 routers to 1 router and then 2 small routers. There's a ton of options. So you can really look and kind of pick the one that makes sense for your home, your layout, how many you need. And if you're not sure, you can start with less and then add on additional nodes as you need them to increase that coverage. So that's another really good benefit of going with a mesh system, especially Linksys that has smaller, larger, and multiple band networks in there.
Question then. So I'm with the other lady. I have the Spectrum, but I have their phone also, and as well as the cable and the Wi-Fi. So is there really an advantage of putting the other cable modem in? Is that what you're talking about? Or is it a Wi-Fi modem that you're talking about?
We're kind of talking about both and. I mean, if you are happy with your Wi-Fi and you're not experiencing any issues, it's up to you if you want to try and start messing with that. Again, once you start down this process, you might end up with some troubleshooting issues and something might break. So it's totally up to you. The reason I did it was I was getting poor Wi-Fi speeds. And as I added more and more smart home devices, I found the connectivity to be lacking just using Spectrum's Wi-Fi router. And I needed a mesh network. I have two nodes or two access points, two wireless routers in my mesh network, and my house was just too big for the one. And so again, if your Wi-Fi coverage in your house is great and you're happy, that's wonderful. If you have a house that, the far room, you're not getting the Wi-Fi connectivity that you want, then you might want to look into the mesh networks. And for that, you got to move away from Spectrum's router. So it just depends, if you're satisfied and you don't want to mess with it, that's fine. You can still try the smart home stuff. But if that one room, you just bugs you every time because you can't load a website, then you might want to invest in some of this other stuff.
Stephen, the way you have your network set up, do you use an Ethernet backhaul to your mesh device?
No, actually, because it's a very old house, I wanted a robust mesh network where that second node is just wireless. And so my main Linksys Velop node is what's connected by Ethernet, and then my second node is all wireless. But that's why I always tell people about the Velop system, because that second node gives me excellent coverage, and I pay for like 300 something down in speeds, and I get 300 down even when my devices are connected to that secondary node. And so that's why I prefer it.
Okay, yeah, I've been reading about ASUS. I'm an ASUS router bigot. They're more expensive, but they're really good. And typically people that run large mesh networks where they have multiple nodes, they'll actually run an Ethernet cable out of their central, if you will, hub, which is wireless, their primary router. And then they'll run an Ethernet backhaul link to their remote node, if you will. And that way you get wired speed all the way to the AP and, your access point, and then you're golden. I mean, there's absolutely nothing that can go wrong. It's.
If you have that luxury of having the wired Ethernet in place.
Well, that's the thing is the wired part of the, in other words, the wired backhaul connection to the remote access point, it just goes at whatever the speed is. Like, for example, I have fiber from Grande that runs at gigabit. And so I could literally have a gigabit network that just the endpoints are wireless, but everything in between is all wired. It's all gigabit.
That would be ideal.
So again,
I see you bragging about that gigabit internet connection.
Well, no, it's really good. And Google came down the street about, I don't know, 3 weeks ago and ran another gigabit line fiber. So like in about probably 2 or 3 months, I'll have two where, gigabit networks that I'll be able to pick on, and so, and that's great because the competition will mean the price will probably, I can, hopefully it'll go down.
Thanks for rubbing it in. Thanks for rubbing it in. I got Spectrum and then I got HughesNet. Those are my two options.
Oh, I'm sorry. No. Yeah, try HughesNet. Like latency.
We have Spectrum in Austin.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with that. I used to have stuff like that, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got Spectrum, and then I've got my own Motorola Surfboard modem, and then it goes to Time Capsule. And that Time Capsule, I think, probably needs to be replaced by this Belkin Linksys Velop. Is that right?
That's right.
Well, if you have a Time Capsule that's backing up your Mac, if that's what you're talking about, kind of that older, where it has like a hard drive inside of it, the Linksys Velop, it has the ability to attach like a hard drive to it, but it's not built in. So just be cognizant of that. If you're looking for a backup solution and a wireless router, you might have to get an additional device to the Linksys Velop as opposed to that Time Capsule that Apple used to sell.
Well, the Time Capsule, it doesn't back up all the computers here. It can't handle it. And I've got external hard drives, and some of the computers can't see those. So the backing up right now is not working like it really needs to. So the whole Time Capsule needs to get replaced.
Yeah, my Time Capsule, its hard drive died, and I replaced it with a Buffalo, network attached storage for Time Capsules function, and that works. I'm still using the Time Capsule Wi-Fi router, but I'll be replacing it soon, I'm sure.
Well, on mine, the drive in it is still working, but I can only attach one external drive. If I try to attach two external drives, it only sees one of them. So I got to get something that can handle more. It's just not adequate. And it sounds like you're recommending this Belkin Linksys Velop with a couple routers in the mesh, and that'll get me to where I get service downstairs, where my wife's sitting there on the couch trying to do stuff. And I've got an iPod Mini that I've still got in the box that I want to set up for Apple TV as a driver for Apple TV, and a hard drive that's got a bunch of good stuff on it. All that can work with all this, right?
I'm not sure about the iPod Mini Apple TV situation. I might need a little more info on that. But otherwise, yes. I mean, getting the Linksys Velop with that extra node for your other like floor in your house, that would definitely help.
Oh, one thing, it occurred to me in the midst of all this, as of January 1st, apparently cable companies aren't allowed to charge you. In other words, it used to be that even if you had your own cable modem and router, they would charge you for their rubbish, their access point, their modem and router. And apparently, as of January 1st, they're not allowed to do that. In other words, if you have customer provided equipment and you don't use you return the Spectrum rubbish that they provide you with to the sales office, they're not allowed to charge you. They typically charge between anywhere from $5 to $15 a month for their equipment. And now they're not allowed to do that per, recent FCC regulation. So anyway, if you see that on your bill and you actually return your equipment and use your own, you should have that taken back off your bill. Just by the way.
I have a question. I'm going to take this back down to first grade level. You're talking about being able to close and open the blinds. Does that mean you have to have special blinds, or is there some attachment that goes on the blinds that you have? Is that clear?
That's clear. And there's with a lot of stuff in the home space, there's a lot of answers. I can say there are retrofit versions. There are, I think one called Somfy, I think does some. Steven has messed around with a semi HomeKit enabled version that can retrofit certain blinds. It has some success. For me, I went and we just bought our house, so I knew I wanted to do it from the beginning, and I bought Lutron Serena shades. Those are ones that were designed from the beginning to be smart, and it's like an 8-foot like bay window in the not actually a bay window, but just a giant window in front of our house. And we bought that to put it in. Hunter Douglas, I want to say, is another one that offers connected shades. But really, it depends on what kind you have. Are they slats? Are they vertical? Are they fabric? Do they roll? Do they slide? Depending on what you have, there may be something to retrofit. And then otherwise, you would need new shades that have the smart part built in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the blinds all have to look the same, from the street. So I have that limitation. But they're ordinary blinds.
Yeah, there's devices that you can attach to like the pulley ropes, and it'll like motorize the things up and down. In my experience, it might create more frustration than benefit, if they slip off the thing or whatever. But I put a link in the chat to the Serena shades that Andrew just mentioned. Those are from the company called Lutron, and they make wood blinds. They make all kinds of shades, roller shades, and those are built to have the HomeKit built into it. So we'd definitely suggest that. Probably than trying to get one of those other motorized things.
It's great.
One that's popular for blinds in the UK, and they're probably available there, is IKEA have just brought out a range that you can actually put a battery powered unit in, and they are HomeKit compatible as well. They're about £100 here. I don't know if they're available overseas or not yet.
I think they might have just launched. Sorry, my camera died. It'll be booting up here in a second. That's what happens when I'm running through my camera batteries all day. But IKEA did bring them to the US, but again, subtly bragging over there that you got your IKEA. They were not coming to the US for the longest time. They launched overseas first, and we have been waiting for them over here. And I think they finally just started rolling out in the US. So yeah, IKEA does have some cheaper alternatives as well. I think we had a couple other questions. PBO asked about HomeKit wireless devices, 2.4 versus 5 gigahertz. 95% are going to be on 2.4 gigahertz, likely because of the chipset that they're using, lower power versus the 5 gigahertz. So yeah, it's really annoying. Like Steven's issues with them, Maris products, and I had problems with a ceiling fan that I had put in. I can't even think of it. It starts with an H, I think. Hunter fans, yeah. And I had a huge issue with the 2.4 versus 5, and their solution is to split your network into the 2.4 and label them separately. And I hate that as a solution. To me, that is not a solution, because you don't want to have individually labeled networks and be managing them yourself on your iPhone of like, wait, do I want to connect to the 5 or the 2.4? No. If the product is not capable of kind of handling that good enough on its own, I wouldn't trust it. So I don't really like the Maris products. After Steven's issues with them, I have not bought another Hunter fan since I had that issue. I have the 2.4 and the 5 gigahertz networks in my house, and I haven't had an issue with any of my products that are using Wi-Fi. There's an Eve light strip that uses Wi-Fi and a few others, and I haven't had that problem. So I think it depends a little bit on how they implement it in the chips, but most of them are on that 2.4 spectrum. You guys were talking a little bit more about those routers or the modems. And last night, I don't know all this stuff, but I was recently talking to Spectrum because I was having issues with my Wi-Fi. For me, I originally replaced my routers first to see if that was giving me better coverage, because I needed the better coverage in our older home. And after I had the Wi-Fi working, I had good coverage, but still slow internet. And that's the point where I ended up switching my modem, because I had to restart the modem all the time. And I do have gigabit internet from Spectrum, and they do now allow you to use your own modem, but it has to support the required, like, I don't know if it's like DOCSIS 3.2, maybe it's at least 3.1, but it might be 3.2. But you do need to make sure you have ones that support the speeds that are needed for that. So the few of you out there that do have gigabit or higher speeds, just pay attention to those. But Spectrum's a pain in the butt. There's asterisks over everything, so it's never a simple solution.
You mentioned splitting your network for the different speeds, 2.4 and 5, depending, like you said, 2.4 is really widespread. Would it be possible to, for example, if you had a fairly modern router, to create a guest network and lock it, in other words, have a password protected guest network, and then use that exclusively for, your devices, in other words, have like RoboNet, and then have one, for PersonNet for all the regular stuff, right? And split them that way. Now, the problem with that, though, is I've got a little piece of code that allows me to look at all the networks in my neighborhood, and the 2.4 band is just totally saturated for obvious reasons, right? Because everybody has that. So it's difficult. So you have to kind of adjust that. But it occurred to me that maybe the guest network, this is obviously I'm talking through my hat because I don't have all of this stuff. I still have X10 stuff that I'm still supporting, that works strangely and poorly.
It's definitely possible to do that. I actually do the same thing. I don't use the guest network. I actually have a whole separate router system just for my smart home stuff, because I want to keep it as separate as possible and make sure that nothing is slowing down other things. But I get complicated. I was talking to pick someone who makes router, or they might have been Linksys actually, like yesterday, and they were asking me how many devices I have, and I went and counted. I've got like 77 devices on my home network. Just me and my wife. There's not a pile of us here. It's two of us, and I've got 77 devices on the network. So I always needed a solid router and stuff. So I'm extra and went with a separate router option, mainly because I bought a new one for Wi-Fi 6 to use with my newer devices, and I used my old routers for my smart home stuff. So you could use the guest network. The only thing I'd make sure of is that there are no blocks or limitations. Sometimes when you have a guest network, it'll automatically kind of cordon them off and not allow them to have access to things on your network that it may need to have access to, like your phone or a home hub, something like that. test it, just make sure that that could be a limitation depending on the router that you got.
Well, maybe they just feel like second-class citizens because they're relegated to the guest network. I mean,
right? They'd never feel like they were home.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're just lame, and we're stuck on this horrible. That's interesting. That's what I was going to say. One way to deal with this is to look at the AX products that are coming out now. Now they're supposed to be superseded by what is it? AXE, the
6E.
Wi-Fi 6E stuff that is supposed to come out later this year sometime. But I'm an ASUS Wi-Fi router bigot, and they have one that runs about $150 US called a RT-AX58, I think, that really is quite fast. Has a triple core in it, and the good radios apparently. And I'm thinking, this might be a good solution because apparently the reach of these newer AX class devices is better. I understand how Wi-Fi works, but I don't really see how the claims of added range, the longer distance is true, but apparently somehow they're getting it. I don't know how, but difference in modulation, maybe, I don't know. But anyway, fun city.
Anyone else have any other HomeKit questions to round us out?
I don't actually have a HomeKit question, but I did set up a mesh network at my house, and I have a AT&T gigabit router that, like you guys were saying earlier, there's an IP address, password, and ID on the physical router so that you can log in. And if I wanted to, I could turn the two radios for the Wi-Fi on that router off. And all I did was I bought a set of Nest routers, and I had an Ethernet connection to my existing AT&T router in my living room, and I plugged one of my Nest routers into that, got full speed from that, and then that was near the back of my house. And in the front of my house, I set the other Nest router up wirelessly. And so really, I didn't have to buy anything. I didn't have to communicate with AT&T. I didn't have to do anything. And now I've got two Nest routers blasting Wi-Fi throughout my house. And it was really relatively trivial to set up because you use your iPhone and the Google app to set your Nest routers up, and they walk you through most everything. And I just thought I would throw that out. That way, if you had phone service connected to your Spectrum or AT&T router or whatever, you wouldn't have to lose that. In fact, I found out that the radios from my AT&T router weren't actually interrupting my Wi-Fi that much, and I just left them hot. They're back in a way back corner of the house, and I just thought I would throw that out there, see what it was worth.
Confusing.
Well, it's been fun. I know. Thank you guys so much for having us. And
thank you so much.
I have a question.
Yes. Oh,
You
sure.
know, what if you've got all this set up to activate with your telephone, and like a normal person, you can't always remember where your telephone is?
Right.
Well, your
Find my
iPhone, your
iPhone.
landline.
That's where the HomePod becomes useful.
Oh, as long as you can talk, right?
You
Listen,
can ask
listen,
your HomePod where your phone is.
Again, we have 3 small kids, and my wife, she constantly forgets, where the phone was because, again, just one craziness. And so she uses her Apple Watch all the time. There's the little ping my iPhone command. It's not going to show up, but she uses it constantly. So you might want to think about getting an Apple Watch if you keep losing your iPhone, because it is a lifesaver. But anyway.
So one last thing, if everyone wants to turn their camera on and smile, I'll do a screenshot and I can send it to the club or whatever, just so everyone, I'll count to 3. I'll give people time. If they want to smile, if they want to turn the camera on, if they want to turn the camera off. Okay. 1, 2, 3. That's it.
I have a question.
Thank you for doing that.
I do have a question, and I'm sorry I came in late because I had another meeting that conflicted with this, but I heard you talking about routers, and something that's been on my mind is the difference between the, I guess you would call them the all-in-one modems that incorporate a router versus the modems that stand alone and plug into a standalone router, which would be your first interface in your home. Is there any kind of a consensus as to which is better to go with, the two devices or the single device?
I guess, Steven, you can have something too, but I would say off the bat, usually you have more options when you're going with separate devices. A lot of people have modems, or if they have fiber with AT&T, I don't even think you can swap them out. So you're just getting a router if you're buying something separately. So for that reason, most like Linksys, all their like mesh routers and everything, they're all just routers, no modems integrated. Netgear with their Orbi products. There's so many. Synology is out there. There's a ton. All the big popular mesh routers, most of them, 90%, are going to just do the routing and rely on something else for the modem. If you can find, because I know they exist, you just have more limited options. If you go with something like Netgear, I know they're really known for their modems. They might have a modem router combo that works with its own mesh system. That would be an option to go with. See right there. There might be some more options in that realm, but usually if you're looking for the most options and most kind of something that's really tailored to what you're looking for, separate devices would be best, especially if you have to replace one or the other. You know, if you want to go to Wi-Fi 6E and you don't want to replace your modem, you don't have to. Or if you already have good Wi-Fi, but you're upgrading to fiber, so you need to make sure you have a more capable modem in there, you can just swap out the modem. So it's a little bit easier to change devices interchangeably.
Yeah, it won't be long before Google starts sending fiber to the back of my house because they're almost done in the street now.
I was just going to second what Andrew said.
I'm sick of hearing from you people that have fiber because we can't get it here, and I'm not happy.
Tom, I'm with you, Tom. I'm feeling the pain. I just have Spectrum. That's my only option.
Tom, you're going to have to move, buddy.
Somebody said
Same with you,
Wi-Fi
Steven.
6E. Is there a difference between Wi-Fi 6E and Wi-Fi 6?
That's a good question. 6E and 6 are different. Wi-Fi 6 really just took off in 2020, and already here we are in 2021 with 6E. So Wi-Fi 6 had a few benefits. It was a little bit faster. It had actually battery life saving on your wireless devices. But 6E is the really big beneficial one because, as we talked about with the 2.4 versus 5 gigahertz, the FCC just made new spectrum available to Wi-Fi routers. And that is what 6E is. 6E is taking advantage of the newly opened 6 gigahertz spectrum. So now you can have additional bands on your router running at 2, 4, 5, and 6. And if you have a mesh router that is supporting 6E, even if something like your phone isn't supporting Wi-Fi 6E yet, like Apple doesn't have any Wi-Fi 6E stuff, you're still able to use that Wi-Fi 6E, that 6E spectrum, the 6 gigahertz spectrum, as the backhaul between your mesh nodes. So there's a ton of benefits to that, especially for people who are living in apartment homes or cities where your area is just congested with a lot of routers. So it's going to make a big, big difference. We're obviously still in the midst of CES, but there's been already like dozens of Wi-Fi 6E routers announced, starting to ship as soon as like April, I believe. They're going to be pricey at first, but they're going to make a big difference, especially for people with a lot of networks near them.
That's my problem. Is this Linksys Velop that people have been talking about, or is that 6E or just 6?
They've got everything. They've got ones that are still doing Wi-Fi 5 stuff, you know, the Wi-Fi AC and everything. They have newer, cheaper Wi-Fi 6 enabled ones. That's what Steven and I are using right now, Wi-Fi 6 enabled Linksys developed routers. But they did announce at CES a new 6E version. The biggest problem is their starting point for their 6E router is like $700 or something. So that's typically Linksys's fashion. They'll announce that really high-end version to take advantage of that platform as soon as it's out, and then bring it down to the masses over the next year or so before they have those much more affordable versions of a 6E router.
Because I'm seeing on their website prices from $299, $399, $599, although they showed 1, 2, and 3 different units. So I didn't know if the units were actually different or if you were paying for multiple units versus 1 unit.
There's a lot of variation. You're going to be paying for how many units you want, 1 hub versus 2 or 3 additional access points on there. You're also going to be paying for it. They have dual band and tri-band versions. So the dual bands are a little bit shorter and the tri-band versions are taller. So that's going to be one difference. And then the Wi-Fi 6 ones are even chunkier. And they just have like 4 Ethernet ports, 4 LAN ports along the back. So you're going to pay for a few of those different things between Wi-Fi 6 versus Wi-Fi AC, how many ports are on the back, how many radios or bands they are, stuff like that. So there's a lot of variability in between them all.
I'm just like, I'm getting a lot of interference.
I think that we've had a wonderful program from Andrew and Stephen, and them both being back on the East Coast. I'm sure they're probably about ready to wrap things up because they're going to be up early tomorrow with CES. I want to thank you both for putting on a very good program this evening. You've covered a broad scope of topics and given us a lot of good information.
Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
And we will keep you
thank
on
you,
our
everyone.
list.
Perfect. Let us know. We'll be back. Remember, tell Mike Worthley we were better. Stephen and
Worthley,
I
and you guys
superior.
are better.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right. Good night, all, and we'll
Wait,
be
John.
back in February. Oh,
Wait, pardon me. Door prizes.
okay.
Okay, 4 people who are paid members whose names will be drawn will receive a $25 Amazon gift card by email sometime in the coming week.
My check's in the mail.
Thank you for reminding me, Nancy. Any other last minute things to come up?
I got a
Yeah.
time capsule question. Has anybody tried putting in a solid state drive in a time capsule?
It should be doable. I think all of the time capsules have a standard SATA interface, probably SATA 2. I would be surprised. Maybe the very latest, the last one they made might be SATA 3, which is 6 gigabits per second. But yeah, basically now, once you plug it in there, you're going to have to get the time capsule to format the drive, which is not if you Google around, just Google on, hard drive replacement on airport, or pardon me, time capsule. I looked into it. I've got a scrap one that somebody gave me, and it's been sitting around for a year. I just haven't gotten around to it, but I looked into it and it was pretty straightforward. But a solid state drive ought to work well. Now, the only proviso that I would have is that back in the old days, you had to have trim, set trim so that it would properly deal with deleted materials on the drive itself. But I think most modern SSD drives actually have trim routines that they run internally without being prompted to do so. So they should work. Yeah, it should work great. Give it a try. What the heck? A 500 gig drive or a terabyte drive a terabyte drive runs less than $100. Give it a shot. Can't miss.
Mine's got to fail first. It's still working.
Well, if it starts whining and making clicking noises, that's probably a bad sign.
Yeah.
Yeah, say mine died.
Yeah.
I
Like,
went with an external NAS box, the network attached box.
yeah. The hard part's going to be getting the thing apart.
Apple packages their products well.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a gentle way to say it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it gives you something to do on those long winter afternoons.
Any other comments? Okay, folks, I think we're wrapping it up, and we will have our next meeting in early February. A notice will go out by email and let you know all the details. So look forward to that. And if you have any suggestions for a program, let us know.
You know,
Good night, all.
John.
Thank
Yes.
you. Good night.
I was
Wait a
just
minute.
thinking, everyone that was complaining about internet speed, they found out everyone needs better connectivity to work at home and for schooling. Start complaining to elected officials. Why isn't it policy that we can get connected well? and easily?
Exactly.
I mean, advocate.
Good night, Sophie.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Nice to see you all.
Night
Yeah.
all. Good to see you.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys, for a great presentation. Bye.
Yeah, and good night in London. I'm sure it's late.
Get some sleep.
3
Greg.
a.m.
Yeah.
Bye.
But you're still in London. It's great.
Get some sleep.
Clubs are closed.